Coming up on A Girl and a Gun, music videos in space, how to make a viral video, and we get pulled down by YouTube.
A Girl and a Gun, episode 7, recorded 16th of May 2013. YouTube pulled my Spock.
All you need to make a movie is a girl and a gun. Come along and join the party while we stare at the sun.
Hello, welcome to A Girl and a Gun, the show for filmmakers and content creators. I'm Phil Moore, and as always, I'm joined by John Maisels. Hello, John.
Hello, everybody. Hello, Phil.
Oh, it's been a funny week this week.
It's been a very interesting week.
Especially with our last episode, but we're going to talk about that a little bit later. We had some dramas with it, I think.
You can't fight the man, but maybe you should.
Maybe you should sometimes. Let's get stuck straight into the fast news in our news of the week. An interesting story here from Ted Hope, an indie film producer. He's done this, I'm not sure if this was a blog originally, but it's on the nofilmschool.com website. 17 things about the film biz that should significantly influence your behaviour. I do recommend anyone in film production have a look at this. I'll just read the top one here, for example. Number 1, filmmaking is not currently a sustainable occupation for any but the very rare. He's got some pearls of wisdom like that all the way down, some harsh realities about the state of the industry and where it's going. Have a look at that. Ted Hope, 17 things about the film business should significantly influence your behaviour, nofilmschool.com. John.
Kodak has named Christian Richter to head up its film lab and be studio relationship manager. And this is really interesting. Kodak, which of course built its business on film, on real photochemistry, and has been facing significant financial pressure of late. It's gone through selling off a whole lot of its assets in order to get $3 billion to be able to basically buy its way out of trouble. Now, Kodak did a whole lot of really clever things in the time up to now, just before digital. Also did some really stupid things, like trying to take on Polaroid, and Kodak got creamed when it came out with the self-developing camera, the handle. Polaroid took them to the cleaners, and then Polaroid vanished. It's just such an interesting industry. These days, you'd think everything is being done on digital media. In fact, The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is now being shot using 4 different Kodak film stocks. Film not quite dead, and Kodak betting a bit of its farm that film will be around for a short while at least. Phil?
Magic Lantern have released it's basically a hack for the Canon 5D Mark III, which enables it to now shoot in RAW format, 24 frames a second. Now this is not unlike the story we did last week or the week before, where Canon themselves have introduced an upgrade, a firmware upgrade, that allows RAW out of the HDMI port. So these guys at Magic Lantern, and it's getting a lot of buzz, that's why I thought it's worth mentioning. These guys have done a hack on this, so that happens, I think, inside the camera itself. You don't have to go out of the HDMI port. The forum's been quite a buzz with this, and a quick RAW test is I wanted to see how much higher I could do above 720p. This does at 1920 by 1080p in RAW format. It would fill up to, and video stops after 700 frames or so. At 850, I'm able to get continuous recordings. So they did this with stills initially, with still images in kind of burst mode. But now they've got it happening in video at an aspect ratio of, what was the aspect ratio here? I'm not quite sure what it was.
16 by 9?
1920 by 817, 235 to 1.
Ah, so like in
so
scope.
You can crop it to scope aspect ratio, which is about 1920 by 817. So what were they saying? You can get pretty good raw footage out of this with this update now, with this hack that has been done. If this is still valid after the Canon upgrade, I don't know, but it's another option. Those who are into the 5D and cinematography, again, this came from nofilmschool.com. There's also a story on this on redsharknews.com, which we saw. John.
I think this raises an interesting opportunity. Clearly, to be able to get into the software of a camera, it's not like they publish the SDK so that you know how to go and do this. To be able to hack into it and actually do something like that is pretty amazing. And of course, what they will discover, quite reasonably, is that there are hardware limits to the camera. It maybe, it's not going to behave like a Red just because you hack the software.
Well, the camera was never intended for video in the first place, the Mark II anyway.
Yeah.
And now they've made it even more a hardcore video camera. I don't know if it'll be able to keep up with it.
It's well, what I'm hearing is it's still a very popular device and still very much sort of one of the devices of choice.
Certain cinematographers don't like it, some love it. Horses for courses.
Yeah, but it all comes down to the look you want to get and your choice of lenses.
Yeah.
And certainly the reports coming back from NAB, where 4K was the big buzz. Huge number of lenses now being offered to bulk out the range of focal lengths that you want to get decent video.
The camera's like this big now. The lenses are this big.
Oh yeah, and we'll talk about the Blackmagic design camera at some stage, because that really is like a pimple that sits on the back of the lens. Quite
the
amazing.
new small one.
Yeah,
Anyway.
yeah, amazing.
Spa Fringe.
It's back to me.
Yes.
Okay. Look, you probably, if you've ever cruised around all the Foxtel channels, there's this one that I don't know how many viewers they have, but it's Studio. It's the Arts channel. It's finally they've got a V for Studio instead of a U for Studio instead of the Studio for a long time. But they've teamed up with SPA, the Screen Producers Association of Australia, and also the Vivid Sydney project. And they are offering aspiring filmmakers the opportunity to get into the Kickstart program, the Kickstart program that Studio is using, because of course what they want to do is attract new sources of content and also plenty of new viewers to the Arts channel. I know how much everybody in this country loves the Arts and how popular the channel must be on that basis. But Arts is important. If you're watching this, you're involved in the arts. You know how important it is. Go and check out the website, and there's a click through on that to get into the Kickstart program. They're basically saying we'll tutor you into being able to pitch your idea. Can't think of anything better than that.
No, and they're looking for, as I say here, original, low budget and edgy TV series ideas. So it's pitching TV ideas. You'll find that on Spa Fringe, spaa-fringe.org.au. Moving right along. There's going to be a study done here. Australian Equity and the University of Sydney are launching a research project to investigate the health ramifications of the lifestyle of a professional actor.
And I've got to love that photo. That just looks like somebody who is already sick.
That is Christian Bale, better known for the Batman films, in the film The Machinist, where he deliberately lost, and this is just before the first Batman film. So in this film, he lost all this weight, and then he bulked right up for Batman again, which was really hard on the body. And so they're going to do a study, and Simon Burke, the Equity president, says, there is no part or project that's as important as our health and well-being. Well, sure. I'm so proud that Equity is behind this research project. It's really important we all take part in it. So we'll find out how acting can endanger your health.
And by the way, that is incredibly important for people who are working in this industry. We're all encouraged to go that extra mile, kilometre, metre, centimetre. we just we go the extra distance in the name of our art. And I've seen people do incredibly, well, sometimes even really stupid things in the name of getting a laugh, or in not letting down the public who are sitting in the front row. People who just turn up and they're really sick, but the show must go on.
One of my videos is playing in the background. I don't know which one it is.
But that's the logic that goes on. And you really can't underestimate the importance of maintaining your health.
What is that playing?
I don't know what is playing.
I'm going to turn my sound down. Sorry about that.
Live television. That's not going to end up on the cutting room floor, is it?
No.
No.
The famous examples like Robert De Niro in the boxing film Raging Bull, for example, where he started out losing a lot of weight and then had to gain it all.
That's just punishing.
Yeah.
It's truly punishing.
And it's to say, people who are doing their own stunts and things like that, it can be a very punishing job for an actor.
Yeah.
And not just for stunt work sometimes.
And by the way, just talking about health, of course, this week, the big news, shout out to Angelina Jolie. for taking the very gutsy step of having a pretty serious operation in the name of not putting herself at risk in the future from cancer, which was just something that was indicated as genetic. She basically had a double mastectomy as a prophylactic measure.
Oh, okay.
Angelina Jolie. Okay, so
I hadn't heard that one. Okay.
yeah. And she's going to be okay, but I just she's billed as movie star and humanitarian. Gutsy move.
Let's move along. Daft Punk. They're just releasing a new album, Random Access Memories. Now, this is relevant because, again, it speaks to the IP and copyright and piracy issues that we have here. Rather than run the risk of everyone just pirating this holus bolus, they've actually released the whole album for free on iTunes, streaming only. So you can listen to it, the whole album, for free prior to the release of the album. Because if they say here, once they start packaging this as CDs and shipping it, it's already pirated before it gets to the stores. Someone's ripped it, it's up there, it's on, within hours it'll be on a torrent. So I think one way to people who really want to hear the music straight away, rather than having them download the pirate version, jump onto iTunes, listen to it for free, stream it, and then when the CD comes out next week, buy it.
But like I think that's possibly not the right answer either. If somebody wants to pirate that material, they will simply play it out of one PC, record it in another, and put that file up. And that's certainly, it's very, very, very easy to do.
Serious pirates are not going to stop, sure.
Correct.
But what they're trying to circumvent is people who just really want to hear it now.
People who just want to download the file.
Or maybe just to sample it, have a listen, see what it's like. If they like it, they'll buy it. And rather than having them download a pirated version, we'll give it to you. Have a listen to it. It's like radio, basically. You know, on iTunes, download it for free for a while, and then if you really like it, go buy the album. It's another way to try and circumvent piracy. Great Gatsby's been released.
Yes.
And we didn't talk about it last week, but we almost did, in that there's been quite a few critics that were giving the film a hard time before its release. They'd seen advanced copies of it and they didn't seem to like it. Well, the public seems to disagree. It's doing very well. It's become the second biggest film in the US, just behind Iron Man 3. This week, Star Trek's up there as well, but it's still one of the top 3 films out there at the moment. 19.4 million gross on the opening Friday. 19.7 million, nearly equaling the more than 19.7 million that Iron Man makes, so almost the same as Iron Man. A really good opening weekend for Great Gatsby. I wouldn't have thought so, to be honest.
I wonder how much CG there is in Great Gatsby. I haven't seen it yet. I think it's one of these films I'm going to want to see. But I just, when you compare those two films, Iron Man is basically, a little bit of adventure and a big amount of CG. Great Gatsby, I think, is much more about performance.
Well, I think possibly I think it comes down to Iron Man and Star Trek are boys' films. Great Gatsby's a girls' film.
So I shouldn't go and see it. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I'm sure we'd enjoy it as well. But it's the kind of film that women are more likely to want to go and see than maybe Iron Man. I'm generalising incredly here. I know.
Absolutely. I just love the way he said, "We'll enjoy it as well." You're offering to go with me, Phil. Is that it?
Yeah. Why not?
Right.
Take the wives.
Just us girls.
Just us girls. So it's doing well, and it's actually getting some good reviews as well. So despite the early troubles it seemed to have, it's doing really well. Good luck to it. I'm not sure that it's my cup of tea, to be honest, frankly, only because Baz Luhrmann's been disappointing me lately.
Yeah, but it could be your gin and tonic.
It could be my gin and tonic. The trailer didn't impress me, but the film and there's parts of the trailer that I'm sure he's done very well, like the dance
Look,
scene.
they're all bits of escapism. Star Trek's escapism. Iron Man is a bit of escapism, but Gatsby is a different sort of escape. It's an escape back to a time when everything was incredibly opulent and nobody said no to anything.
Well, to the extent that we can call it an Australian film, it's doing very well. It's one of the best Australian films, certainly for an opening weekend. We have here a video I'd like to jump to now. This is from Canadian astronaut Chris Hadfield. Some of you may have already seen this. He's been doing the rounds this past week. He did a version of David Bowie's Space Oddity in space. So it's the first music video actually made in space. Let's run a little bit of that.
Ground control to Major Tom. Ground control to Major Tom. Lock your Soyuz hatch and put your helmet on. Ground control to Major Tom. Commencing countdown, engines on. Detach from station and may God's love be with you.
It doesn't change the lyrics though.
This is ground control to Major Tom. You've really made the grade, and the papers want to know whose shirts you wear. But it's time to guide the capsule if you dare.
That's changed the lyrics there.
This is Major
So,
Tom.
stop that there now, thanks, guys. If you know the original song, Major Tom actually ends up hurling off into space and they lose him. Well, you can't have a NASA astronaut with any singing about being any kind of danger, so it's all very tame. They take out
but
the danger.
certainly looking down that corridor, it's very evocative. You know, here I am floating in a tin
There is.
can.
It's beautiful that they've shot this in there. He's floating. You see the Earth outside the
Yeah.
windows. It is the right song to do for this kind of thing. And that's been getting a lot of hits. It's currently 11.7 million nearly just in the past week or so.
Wow. And you know what really comes to my mind, looking down that long corridor and seeing the round door at the end, the hatch, and my brain goes, open the pod bay doors, please, Hal.
Open the pod bay doors. What's his name, Chris?
Hal.
Hal.
Open the pod bay doors, please.
Well, he was Chris.
Yeah.
Benedict Cumberbatch.
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 Okay.
Thank you.
Benedict Cumberbatch.
Benedict Cumberbatch. That name mean anything to you?
It does. Better known as one of the many Sherlock Holmes that have been regaling our...
The best Sherlock Holmes of recent years.
Really, really good.
Which was a great series. He's also the villain in the latest Star Trek film. There has been a Kickstarter project which Benedict Cumberbatch has been associated with. So he's the only name in this. Oh, sorry, not Kickstarter, Indiegogo, another crowdsourcing site. This is a project, a short titled Little Favour, and will feature him as a PTSD, post-traumatic stress syndrome sufferer, enlisted by an old friend, Harry Potter actor Nick Moran. That's in the story. So here it says with 6 days remaining, they've got £25,000. If we can find the site, I'm not sure, they've probably passed their goal now. But the fact is, it's written and be directed by a newcomer, Patrick Victor Monroe, who's otherwise best known as Tom Hardy's personal trainer and assistant.
Yeah,
so
there's a qualification.
not known as a director or writer. Producers are also relative unknowns. Adam Ackland, who's been a second AD on Killing Gene. Ben Dillon, whose usual job is coordinating vehicles for movies, including the upcoming Kick-Ass. So these are not people normally producing and directing or writing, but they are making this, and they must know Benedict because they've got him on board, and by virtue of that alone, this film has raised £25,000+ to make it. So you don't have to be a big name filmmaker to get the money.
But £25,000, how far is that going to go to make a film?
It's a short film.
It'd be very short. £25,000.
Well, you can do a lot with £25,000 these days.
Well, you can buy coffee.
$38,000 roughly.
Yeah, you can buy a lot of cups of coffee.
A lot of cups of coffee. And Benedict may get a salary out of this, I'm sure. If you want to know more, have a look at it. Monroe's debut short from last year, so he has directed before, a short called Oscar's Escape. And Wally he had the cinematography was done by a fellow who'd been Wally Pfister's assistant on Dark Knight Rises. So they've done a bit of stuff before, but they're not well known for it, that's all.
But you ask what it is that you can do with £25,000. That music video that we just saw,
Yes.
yes, it would have cost several $1 million in payload to put that guitar into space.
Yes.
Yes.
But it was worth it.
Yes.
You think it? Meanwhile, in YouTube world. Okay, we've got a few stories here on YouTube. YouTube is now responsible for 17.1% of all residential fixed line downstream, this is North America, United States. So 17.1% of all internet in North America is YouTube.
But who's surprised at this? They've been saying for a long time that video is going to be responsible for, and pick a number out of the sky, it's going to be responsible for 70%, 80%, 90% of all internet traffic.
Well, it's over 50. If you add that with Netflix at 32.3, yeah, they're over 50%. Add Hulu Plus and Amazon and these other ones. So more than 50% of video being watched in homes more than 50% of internet traffic is video in American homes, and probably the same for Australia.
Look, I'm sure there's a lot of people who were thinking when Google bought YouTube, what? How are they going to make money out of this? And it's very clear now that they've found a number of ways to make quite a lot of money out of the stream, and then the flow on is that the amount of video that's flowing over the pipes is generating a lot of revenue in the pipes.
Well, to that, you've taken me right to the next story, in fact, which is that YouTube have now offering subscriptions which you pay for. So you can have a paid subscription channel on YouTube, anything ranging from 99 cents to about $8 a month. Some of the first people to do this are Sesame Workshop, who make Sesame Street. You can get martial arts, fighting championships, and I also know there's a whole channel dedicated to court, like Judge Judy style court.
Yeah.
And you pay a couple of dollars a month and you see nothing but court.
Let me ask the obvious question here. What does it cost you to put your content onto YouTube's pay channel?
Nothing.
But then why wouldn't everybody do it in the hope that you'll get some money from coin clicks?
Well, the way it's worked so far, when you put a video onto YouTube, like we're doing with our podcast.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, sorry. Are we on television? Dear.
You can make money off the advertising, but you've got to be in the millions of hits to make it worthwhile.
Right.
This is one way, if you have a dedicated channel, to actually make subscribers and make money, a couple of dollars a month or something from a subscriber, to try and make this more worthwhile, make it pay better. But you say, what does it cost? Well, nothing to put it up there, but it's still got to have, you've got to make the show. So whatever your production costs are, and it's got to be a pretty good show if people are going to pay for it.
Well, are we going to see now the birth of extremely large amounts of sort of okay, low-cost product that people are going to put up just in the hope of getting some coin clicks back?
Well, I think you've got to be a channel partner with them. So it's almost like they have to think, yeah, your show, your channel is good enough quality, you're producing on a regular basis, you can subscribe to this. So I'm not quite sure how that works. They say here, as we roll out wider and as we roll out self-serve, so it will be self-serve, you'll see a lot of innovation.
Self-serve.
He said, predicting that homegrown YouTube stars with fan followings would set up paid channels. So you're right, it can be for anyone and everyone, basically. I'm just wondering if people were going to accept this. YouTube has been free for too long. Are you willing to pay, even though it's only a couple of dollars a month, for YouTube channel? It's not like television, not like Netflix or Foxtel here.
But it depends on the material.
It will.
If the material's good enough, then you'd pay.
Would you pay for this show? Would you pay for this show?
I don't think that's a fair question, Phil. I don't think
Give me a
that's...
two-shot.
Yeah.
Would you pay for this show? Would you pay $2 a month to watch this show? Let us know. See if we can get some sponsorship. All right, moving along. Here's, well, this speaks to the success of YouTube and putting a video onto YouTube. Here's one that actually, within 24 hours, they claim got 1 million views.
And I bet they weren't getting the money, and I bet they wish they had been.
Well, I'm looking at this from IndieWire.com. Do we have the YouTube? I don't know what the numbers are, no. But this is called This Is Water. What it is, and yeah, you can play that quietly in the background.
There are these two young fish swimming along, and they happen to meet an older fish swimming the other way.
That's
He
David
nods at them and
Foster
says,
Wallace.
"Morning, boys. How's the water?"
Doing a commencement
And the two young
speech
fish
to
swim on
university
for a
graduates
bit,
in
and then eventually one of
2005.
them looks over at the other and goes,
And they've turned
"What
this
the hell is
speech
water?"
into a visualized video.
The point of the fish story is merely that the most obvious
Now, it's quite
important
lengthy. It's like-
realities
what is
are
it,
often the
15
ones
minutes or
that are
something?
hardest to see and talk about.
But it's a
Stated
really
in
good
English
example of
sentence,
how you
course,
can
this is just
visualize
banal
a narrative
platitude.
and
Fact
the
is
use
that
of
in the day-to-day
overlays and
transit of
compositing
existence,
and text and everything
all
else
platitudes can have a life
to
or
tell
death
this story.
importance.
and people have really taken to this
is that
one.
You graduating seniors do not yet have any clue what.
So I do encourage you to have a look at that. It's really well done. The speech itself is quite inspiring.
There happen to be whole large parts of adult.
And it's very cleverly done by the people that made this. So if you're one of the few, it says here, it's a great success story for the outfit who made this, which has a portfolio that features many book advertisements. They're a tiny company and they've done lots of these kinds of things. And it's extremely difficult to get your work noticed, they say. The Glossary is the company that made it. We're always looking for what's next. So we'd welcome anyone who enjoyed This Is Water, get in touch with us. They want to make more of this kind of stuff.
It certainly looks interesting and compelling.
Yeah.
And I love that term commencement that you used. So for those of you who don't know, commencement is graduation.
Yes, in America,
speak.
yeah. They call it the commencement.
Yeah.
Another really interesting video piece I came across this week, DFA. You ever heard of them?
I have not.
They are, it's a bit unclear what DFA stands for. They do explain this in this documentary.
Anytime you see the letter F.
Potentially. DFA was a record label in New York, and they were instrumental in what became the hipster scene in New York. LCD Sound System was one of their top acts.
Like, just what do you mean by hipster?
I'm not sure, but if you see New Girl,
Yeah.
or any of the recent sitcoms out of America, and they refer to hipsters, just see what that is. We don't quite have it here, I don't think.
I always associate hipsters as either the 60s.
Hippies.
Yeah, hippies, hipsters, yeah, 60s and early 70s, or underwear.
They had no.
I don't think it's either of this is.
They kind of, I don't know. This is the kind of music they'd listen to, which was techno at a time when techno wasn't cool in the 90s. And they're all very ironic and they wear weird hats and all that kind of stuff. This documentary, you can play a bit of it as I talk here. This actually talks about DFA Records, who were partly responsible for starting this scene, and the people that were behind the record label. And for those in the music industry, it's a really good insight in how to
The year
start
is
your own
2001.
indie record label.
The place is New York City. George Bush is president, and a subculture of young adults living off their overly supportive parents have just earned the moniker hipsters.
Overly supportive parents.
Our story begins
Kids with
here,
plenty of
in
money.
Manhattan's East Village, at a small club called Plant Bar.
That is a small club.
Inside, you'll find James Murphy, a 32-year-old musician, DJ, and sound engineer who believes his chance of success has already faded from view. Little does he know he will go on to form LCD Sound System, one of the most popular and loved bands of the decade.
So that's a really good one to watch. We can stop that one there. We're going to play the whole thing. That's 13 and a half minutes worth. If you like that style of music, if you want to know how to start your own indie record label, because that was just two guys running the whole show basically, one guy in particular, making records out of a little tiny office above a recording studio. It's like the film industry, you know, the indie film industry now, indie record industry, which sort of started this back in the 90s. And I was part of that back in the 90s. I was making indie CDs and things like that.
You were
being part of
singing,
bands.
weren't you?
I sang. I play keyboards and sing.
Play
yeah.
keyboards and sing. Have you
So
any
I was
idea
in
how
bands
scary that is?
back in the 80s and 90s. Oh, I was good, man. I was good. We
Just
could have
sort
made
of-
it.
we're waiting for him to sort of like come in and do this. He's going to come. Hi, and now I'm going to sing this item to you. And
No, I promise I won't inflict you with my singing voice yet. Anyway, that's our news of the week. We finished our tutorial series with Paul Howard on cinematography. We have a new series, which
I'm very excited about this.
with Karel Segers, our writing teacher here, on screenwriting. We actually shot these earlier this morning. We have a whole series of these lined up. We're going to run the first of those right now on what is the best software, screenwriting software to use. Hello, welcome to this first in our series of tutorials on screenwriting with Karel Segers. Hello, Karel.
Hi, Phil.
The first thing we're going to talk about today is screenwriting tools, software. Yeah?
Yeah, unfortunately, that's what a lot of screenwriters think about first, because I have the feeling that some people think that once they've bought Final Draft, they are a screenwriter. So let's live in that illusion for...
So Final Draft is like the writing tool that everyone aspires to, basically. So if you've got that, you must be serious.
It's an industry leader, has been for a very long time. It's still being used in Hollywood. If you send files to producers there, they expect you to send final draft. Once a script is done, it goes to PDF and it doesn't matter. You shouldn't be able to tell which software the script was written on. And that's what I tell my students. You know.
So is Final Draft the best? What are the other ones like? What other ones do we have to choose from?
Well, Final Draft is the best known. It's definitely not the best. And it kind of changes over the years, which one is the best. But I don't want to talk about Final Draft for the first minute or two.
What alternatives are there then?
Well, I would say people should first think about a story and buy a piece of software that helps telling that story. And there are a few really good ones. I used to use something called Power Structure. You can get that now for $100. Power Structure helps you to divide your story into acts and sequences and scenes, and you can move them around, and you can even build a really cool conflict graph. So for each scene, you set a level of conflict. So if your most suspenseful scene is 100, because that's the top, and this is the scene that you haven't figured out how you're going to write it, it's still 0, then you can map your whole story on a graph.
So this is not so much a screenwriting tool as a brainstorming.
Well, they're not. No, you can go all the way to the script,
Okay.
but it's way beyond brainstorming. It's actually where your story shapes up. So that's Power Structure. There's a similar piece of software. It's called Movie Outline. It's a little bit niftier, looks a little bit flashier. It does the same thing, and they're equally strong as Power Structure. You can finish with your script. So you can, once you've got all your scenes laid out, you can actually write the dialogue and the description in that same software and export it to an RTF file, but that is properly formatted.
Right, and it supports. These all support PDF as well, do they?
Yes, they all do. And they all have light versions. You know, you can do Final Draft on the iPad. There's a light version of Movie Outline you can get for $50 instead of the $200.
Right.
And then there's this monster.
This one I've used actually, yeah.
You have used?
Yes.
Well,
I've
you are
reviewed it.
brave. But then again, you have got a Shakespeare t-shirt on, I don't. Dramatica is something, it asks you a lot of questions, like 700 questions.
It's really meant for novelists more though, this one, isn't it?
I think
it's a bit more full on.
Yeah, I think so. There's screenwriters who swear by it, but I don't. And then we get to the actual writing of the screenplay and Final Draft. It's still quite expensive at $249 recommended retail price, but
$199
through me. I mean, I'm an official
okay.
reseller, so you can get it for $50 cheaper through the story series.
So contact Karel on his Twitter address, which you'll see coming up soon.
That's Final Draft. What's good about it is it's got everything. You can co-write online with it if you want to. You can run reports on props, on actors, on locations, that sort of thing. Now, there is this little thing coming up, and the students here know it very well. It's getting bigger and better. It's called Celtex. It's free. The basic version is free. It used to be entirely free, but now, obviously, they're going with that whole
There's a pro upgrade
freemium thing.
Premium,
Yeah. So now, if you want the same features as Final Draft, I think you're going to be expending pretty much the same.
I quite like Celtex, in fact, because you can, as part of, aside from writing the script, you can put into it the props you're going to use, the locations, photographs. You can become a whole pre-production tool.
Yeah. And you can buy the upgrades as your career progresses. Because you start out, you don't need to spend money. I always say, don't spend money on software until you're making money. Because there are free options out there, and Celtex is a really good one. I've actually worked with the guys, so.
Oh, okay.
They're Canadians and they're lovely. I can highly recommend the software.
And it's actually my software, my screenwriting software of choice at the moment.
There you go.
There you go.
And then, not to forget, it's been around as long as Final Draft, I think. I think it was Francis Ford Coppola who advertised this for a long. They used his face for many, many years.
Movie Magic, which
Movie
has been around for a while.
Screenwriter. So you've got Movie Magic budgeting and you've got Movie Magic scheduling. This Movie Magic Screenwriter, it's really good. It's really powerful. I think it's even more powerful than Final Draft. It's not as commonly used. What I did like about it, because I use everything for my students and clients. Their support team is excellent, and the support team for Final Draft is not so good.
I also found when I did use Final Draft, it tended to crash on me.
Yeah. Well, it has had bugs. It's improved. They all do, you know, they all crash, particularly when they have big changes in the software. Now there are people who don't use any of this. There's people who use Word and get by perfectly. I have a good friend who writes his screenplays in InDesign. Adobe InDesign.
Really?
Yes, he does. He knows that program so well that for him, and you can't tell when he sends you a screenplay. It looks like he's written it on Final Draft. And I have started using Scrivener. Scrivener is a beautiful little word processor. I mean, little is very powerful. Only costs $50. Has one downside for me. It doesn't use scene numbers in the same way Final Draft does. Other than that, I love it. That's my software.
Just to finish up with, what's the main thing you expect from a good screenwriting software?
It's got to be transparent. You shouldn't be thinking about it. You're writing and you can format your scenes or you can shape your story without having to fiddle with the software.
Without having to worry about the formatting.
Exactly.
As well, yeah.
Yeah, it needs to do that for you, and you've got to be writing just in the flow.
That's right. And this is what makes these programs different to just Word on its own, where there's a specific format, which we'll get into in another tutorial.
You actually pay more for a software that does less.
Does less, but does that less bit especially much better.
That's right.
Thank you very much, Karel.
You're welcome.
See you next time on A Girl and a Gun, in our series on tutorials on writing. That's our first instalment on screenwriting, talking about software there. Do you use any of that stuff?
I personally use Scrivener and Celtics, and for different reasons. Both of them will actually do a script for you. Scrivener is probably a bit better if you're doing more journalism or writing magazine articles or something. I use it for that. Celtics is really good for doing script work and across a whole lot of different types of scripting. So it's got different templates if you're doing a corporate video as opposed to if you're doing something that's a stage production. But the big thing about Celtics, which I'm hoping to get to use fairly soon, is it does collaborative work through the sky, through the cloud.
Yeah. Sky.
Yeah.
Cloud's part of the sky.
Sky, cloud, who cares? One of the biggest challenges when you're working as part of a scriptwriting team is how you don't get in each other's way, and you both sort of all keep contributing and collaborating, and Celtics sorts that out.
And as I mentioned in the piece, it also is great for pre-production and stuff. I use it as a regular scriptwriting tool.
Oh, it's good doing that stuff with the icons, isn't it? Yeah.
One thing I wanted to talk about today, our episode from last week, when I had some trouble with that. When I first uploaded last week's episode, it got immediately pulled down. Why do you think that was?
Oh, let me guess. Would it be because we included a piece of video? Would it be the wonderful Leonard Nimoy Spock versus Spock?
Yes,
Yeah.
it was the Audi ad that featured the two Spocks. Because we included that, even though we were talking over the top of it, we did include the whole ad. It was a 2-minute piece. That got flagged by YouTube's fingerprinting system, and the entire video was pulled down.
So this is YouTube's system that looks at the video content, works out that the video content looks like something else that it knows about as being copyright, and then said, violation. So it's all entirely machine mediated.
And there is there's a TED video from someone from YouTube who explains this very well. And I know I meant to send that to you so you could see it, but I forgot to. I'm sorry.
No, but it is actually a problem. And I was part of a team that got caught out exactly like this last year, where we were doing an awards ceremony, and it was an awards ceremony that included an award for long form video and an award for short form video. So of course, what did we do? We showed the clips. It was part of it. And we had copyright clearance to show the clips, and we had copyright clearance to broadcast the clips. What we didn't know is that Ustream, which we were using to stream the video, was doing exactly the same thing. They had the fingerprinting thing, and they pulled it. And they pulled the broadcast without any warning at all.
Well, what happened with our clip was that, the whole thing was pulled as a result of this Audi ad. Now, for those who don't know, if this ever happens to you, you put a clip on YouTube and it gets pulled, you have 3 options. You can just accept that and leave it offline, or you can dispute it. And you've got various ways to dispute it, saying I actually own this copyright, or that I have the rights to this IP, or it's a fair use case and we should be allowed to do this. Okay? In the case of that ad, I thought it's a bit grey. I'm not going to bother fighting that. I'm just going to take it out.
But we didn't show the whole ad, and we were actually, we were doing critical analysis of the ad and its place. So, I thought that sat in the fair use category.
It's unusual that they'd make an ad aimed at geeks with the two Spocks doing a very funny piece, and they don't want it to go viral. They don't want people to share this and put it in their own podcast or other pieces.
No, that's a bit weird.
Wouldn't they want more people to see it? It's an ad.
And of course, they know damn well that by including it on A Girl and a Gun, they would get at least another 5 hits.
Yeah. They don't want that?
No.
I'm trying to think why they want to have this. The one thing that occurred to me was they want to control the data. They want to know the demographics of who's watching the ad, and the best way they can do that is to have them go to the original source.
Yeah, but you don't need to do that.
And the fact is, that's not the case.
Yeah.
YouTube recently introduced a system where if they were to allow us to keep the ad running, they would see the demographics from that for their section. So they'd still get the information.
Audi, what are you doing?
But then I chose to take the ad out. I thought, I'm not going to fight this one.
Yeah.
I re-edited, put it up, and that's the version you see online. But then we got flagged again.
Right.
We got flagged again. What do you think it was for this time?
Bad language.
No. Again, from the fingerprinting for video, it was for the clips that we used from Jason and the Argonauts.
Oh, the Harryhausen
And the tribute
stuff.
to Ray Harryhausen.
Right.
In particular, the skeleton fight.
So what happened there?
Now, what happened? Sony owned the rights to that. Now, they didn't pull our video. What they did, and they have the right to do this, if the fingerprinting says that you're using what could be the intellectual property of someone else, they go to that someone else and they say, okay, what do you want to do with this possible infringement? Do you want to leave it alone, not worry about it? Do you want to monetize it, leave it up there and make some money from it, from the ads that are around the video? Or do you want to pull it down, which is what Audi did. Sony chose to leave our podcast online and monetize it, which means automatically banner ads went up on it, and it was not able to be viewed on mobile devices.
What?
Right.
I mean, it's not something I've tried to do, but...
So they limited how you could view it, and they put ads on it, which we don't actually want on our, because we're a film school, we don't want ads on our channel.
I guess we don't, no.
So I let that be for a day or so, and I thought, actually, because I accepted, that is their copyright after all, I accepted that. And I thought, no, I'm going to dispute this. And then I chose, we have fair use on this, and I explained why. That it's commentary, it's news, Ray Harryhausen had just died. Instantly, those restrictions were lifted, and I think, assuming Sony doesn't come back and say, no, we still want to impose those restrictions, I think we're okay now.
So it was that quick?
Yeah.
Was that good? Like, were you dealing with a machine, or were you...
We're dealing with a machine. So YouTube now has it in
hang
place.
on, let me get this right.
Yes.
So it was the machine that flagged it as not good, automatically, and that's pretty impressive of itself, that it can actually match the pattern of moving video. So, okay, that's cute. I'm sure Google has like 1,000 patents on that. And then you just clicked on something and said, nah, fair use. I want to be able to use it. And machine also mediated there. So there's been no human contact?
No, so it used to be that if this happened, and this happened with an older video of mine, if you got pulled down, you had no recourse.
Yeah.
There was no way you could fight it, and look, without going around YouTube into the original, which you can't do most of the time.
Sure.
There was no way to contact YouTube. So in the last couple of years, they put this up where if you get pulled down and you're going to dispute this, you can literally dispute it and say, I own it, or I've licensed it, or it's a fair use case, and they put it straight back up. And then the other side has to counter and say, no, they actually don't own it, or they've got to prove their case.
But this is still largely machine mediated?
Yes.
Okay, until it doesn't work.
Unless my dispute is invalid. So, and it's invalid. I accept that it's their copyright, but I've said, look, it's
Well, it's certainly worth
We
trying.
only use a snippet of it after all,
All
and
right,
we talk over the top.
so we're going to keep going down this track. We'll keep
We
doing
are not
fair
the only
commentary.
podcast that includes video, other people's IP in our show.
Really?
No. In fact, the news stories that we talked about now, today, when I was reading off screen, that is someone's intellectual property. Someone wrote that. And wherever possible, wherever I remember, I say where it comes from. I cite the source.
Right.
And we acknowledge the IP, that this is someone else's that we're covering. It's commentary. This is a news show, basically. So for those out there, just to be aware, this is what happens on YouTube if you're going to include other people's IP in your project. There is a recourse. You can dispute it if you do have the rights. I also had a recent issue with my film where it got taken down in the UK because of a song that I'd used, which I had the rights to.
Okay.
But the UK record company doesn't know what I'd organised with America.
So
you know.
So there you go. Message to everybody. The rights to the image of Phil Moore that is used in this program is courtesy of his mother.
Yes, and you can't use it without my mum's permission. I think that's enough of that. It's time for Pick My Brain. Now, I have a question which I remember from email from Andrew.
You remember from email
I
from
remember
Andrew.
it from Andrew, which again relates to our YouTube. And I'm trying to remember what it was now.
Well, let's just, while we're doing that, let's just see that super again. If you've got a question for Pick My Brain, send it to anybody but us on the address that you can see on your screen right now.
Okay, and that super then told me the question, which is from Andrew Gonzalez. How do you, just show me that question specifically again, how do you make a
Insert
YouTube
image
video go viral? We haven't got a picture for Andrew
Oh,
there.
sorry, is that going to say insert image here when it actually gets out? Are you going to edit that in?
No.
No, we'll just leave that up.
Andrew wouldn't give us a photo.
Okay.
Thank you for that.
So
how do you make a YouTube video go viral?
Well, firstly, you use supers that say insert image here.
Yes.
Everybody loves it.
But
It's like cats.
I actually do discuss this in classes sometimes. And I'm going to be a bit of nepotism here. I'm going to talk about my son's band, right? Because this is a perfect example of this.
Okay, is this a good time for me to get up and leave?
No. We talked about this in the first episode. My son is a band called Sick Puppies. And they
We are going to get up and leave.
they had a video called Free Hugs, which became known as the Free Hugs video on YouTube.
From
This is before
Free
Google.
Hugs from Sick Puppies.
Yes, this is before Google bought them. It's one of the first monster viral hits that YouTube had. It's one of the reasons Google bought them, in fact.
Sorry, I just want to make sure I understand this. Google bought YouTube.
Yes.
Because your son had a viral hit.
In part, yes. They had a video, look it up, it's from about 5 years ago now.
Okay.
They had a video called Free Hugs, where my son filmed this guy holding a free hug sign, right? And they put their song on this, which was All the Same. And they posted this on YouTube. Within a couple of days, it was in millions of hits. Within a week, they were on Oprah Winfrey, they were on 60 Minutes Australia and America, and they appeared on the Jay Leno Tonight Show once the album came out. That's the video, thank you very much. This was one of the first big viral hits on YouTube that sort of made it think, oh, this is a real deal, right?
Yeah.
This video was not meant to be a viral hit. They never intended it to be a viral hit. It just became that.
I'm sure if they'd intended it to be a viral hit, it wouldn't have been a viral hit.
But I like using this as an example of what about this video made it go viral. There's
Wonderful shots of wherever that is. Is that Melbourne? No, it can't be.
No, this is
It's gotta be
Pitt
Sydney.
Street Mall in Sydney.
Yeah.
All right. And for me, there's two key things. One is, it tells a story. This basically has a 3-act structure, which we'll get into more in our writing series with Karel Segers. This has a 3-act story structure, beginning, middle, and end. There's our beginning. Act 1, he's trying to get a hug, he gets his hug, right?
Wow.
And it ends up going into a
From the
petition.
most gorgeous woman on the
Yeah.
block.
It was an inspirational video. People like the song. The other main important thing
This
that
is getting better.
this proved was that when people saw this video, they wanted to share it.
Oh yeah, this is
They
getting
wanted
better.
to pass it on and share it with other people.
Oh, this is getting lots better.
Yeah. And more than that,
No, it's not getting that much better. Oh, it is getting that much better.
more than people just sharing the link to the video, they went out and did their own free hugs. It was a call to action to do something social, and people did their own free hugs videos. It became a whole massive, worldwide, viral phenomenon for a while.
A viral phenomenon of
Yes.
free hugs movies.
So this is how you make a viral video. It must have a good story, interesting interesting content, interesting character, whatever it might be.
I love that jump at the end.
And it's got to have some kind of call to action. It's got to make people want to do something, want to respond to it in some way and share it and do something that builds on it.
Phil, I'm so close to getting up and going across the set and not giving you any sort of hug at all.
That's quite all right. I don't need a hug right now.
But, okay, so this went viral. How come, you and he and everybody else aren't stinking rich? Or did you not actually have anything to do with it at the time?
He actually borrowed my camera to shoot that, but I didn't have anything to do with the editing or anything.
Oh yeah, but you
was
can
my
come and claim
camera.
that in retrospect.
When he put that up, advertising was not on YouTube, and I don't think they wanted to claim advertising for it. However, all the people that copied that, they use the same song, and they get money from the advertising because they've used the song, thanks to YouTube's fingerprinting. So they are making some money off, what's
So the
developed from
people,
that.
the people who own the copyright on the song should actually be giving your son, Sick Puppies,
Well, this
a
is-
heap of money.
This is the interesting thing. When he put this up, it became so huge so quickly, YouTube pulled it down until they could contact my son Shim and said, do you have the rights to this song? Because we're a bit worried we're going to get sued. And he said, no, please put it back up. I wrote the song. It's my band. I own it. Put it back up. So, you know, even YouTube was, and that's when they thought, we better sort out something that try and analyses this stuff and works out who owns what. And again, it's not the only thing that caused that. I'm not saying they get full credit, but it's one of the things that prompted YouTube to look into all of this.
Wow. So there you go. You heard it here on A Girl and a Gun.
And that's the end of the show, pretty much. You have a tip for us for the week? Anything you want to leave us with?
Well, I'd love to leave you with something about curried egg sandwiches, but you know...
Not again.
No, we did that a couple of days ago. Look, I would say, okay, here's a tip, and maybe we'll cover this in a future episode. If you want to know one really good technical thing to go and learn between now and the next time you watch this show, learn about the theory of parallel resistors. Sounds like it's really geeky, but if you're into audio, knowing what resistors do when they're in parallel explains everything.
Good to know. Parallel resistors.
Parallel resistors.
All
Ohm's
right.
law.
Sorry?
Ohm's
law.
Ohm's law.
Yes. That's our show. If you want to contact us at veronica@agirlandagun.tv, or you can tweet us at agirlandagun. There's the Facebook page as well, facebook.com, A Girl and a Gun podcast. And on YouTube, you found us here, no doubt, at A Girl and a Gun podcast on YouTube. That's the show. Thank you very much, John.
Great being here as always.
See you next week. See
Bye,
you all
bye.
next week. That's a wrap.
All you need to make a movie is a girl and a gun. Come along and join the party while we stare at the sun.
Pulled by YouTube. Anyone got a better idea?
Pulled by YouTube? No. Nick, no.
Coming up on A Girl and a Gun. What was the first one?